Linda had married Mark, thinking she could put the pain of the past behind her. His kind demeanor, caring words, and attention to Emily made Linda feel safe. Their little girl Emily was the most precious part of their lives, and Mark had always been a good father. At least Linda thought so. But over time, things began to stick in her craw. Mark was spending too much time in Emily's room, buying her expensive gifts and staring at her even in the most innocent moments. At first, Linda thought her own mind was playing tricks. Maybe she was under the influence of past traumas, but the uneasiness inside her was growing. One day, Mark's fingers lingered longer than usual as he stroked Emily's hair, deepening her fear. Maybe I'm exaggerating, she tried to calm herself, but something was wrong. She could feel it. That night, as he got up to get water in the kitchen, he heard faint murmurs coming from Emily's room. His feet involuntarily went to the door. When he looked through the doorway, what he saw froze his blood. At that moment, a storm raged inside him. There was nothing left to run, hide, or deny. Linda couldn't breathe at the scene before her eyes. Mark was holding Emily tightly, whispering something to her. The little girl tried to move, but no sound came out. Linda's body was frozen. The only thing echoing in her brain was a shaky whisper of, "Please," reaching her ears. Instinctively, she wanted to rush in, but she couldn't. Mark was strong. He knew what an angry man could do. For a moment, the thought that he could hurt Emily more stopped him. The safest way at that moment was to ignore everything. With trembling hands, she closed the door, quietly returned to her room and sat on the bed. His heart was pounding in his chest. She stared at the ceiling, one thought in her mind. What should I do? If she went to the police, would Mark's colleagues protect her? Would they believe him? What if he couldn't take Emily away from him? He didn't sleep that night. As anger and fear mixed together, one thing became clear in his mind. I have to stop this. The next morning, Linda sat opposite Mark in the kitchen preparing breakfast. He was as calm as ever, even smiling. What kind of monster was hiding behind that fake face? Linda's insides were boiling with anger, but her face showed nothing. Not yet. When she saw Mark kissing Emily, she felt sick to her stomach, but she watched without averting her eyes. In that moment, one thing became clear. This man will never touch my daughter again. That night, after everyone was asleep, Linda accessed the security cameras on Mark's phone. She couldn't stop her hands from shaking. As she watched the footage, all the fear inside her gave way to pure rage. There was no room for doubt anymore. His breathing ragged, he reached for the gun on the table. He could have pulled the trigger immediately. But no, he couldn't rush this. Right time, right place. He didn't sleep a wink until morning. He had to have a plan. Linda spent the morning formulating her plan. She had to keep Emily safe and make Mark unable to harm her again. That day, she called her best friend Sarah and convinced her to let Emily stay with her for a few days. She had to make Mark feel nothing. In the evening, she acted as she always did, waiting for Mark to come home while she prepared dinner in the kitchen. But the storm inside her was growing. When the clock struck midnight, Mark came in, took off his jacket and walked casually inside. Linda was waiting for him in the kitchen, a file on the table. Mark's face paled as he opened it. He had seen the CCTV footage. There was silence for a moment. Then he looked Linda in the eyes. "Why did you do that?" he whispered. Linda didn't even blink. "Because men like you shouldn't live." When she saw his hand reach into his jacket pocket, she pulled the trigger without hesitation. Mark collapsed with a muffled groan, but he was still breathing. It wasn't over yet. Linda gripped the gun tightly in her hand as Mark writhed in pain, clutching his chest. The weight of the moment fell on her shoulders, but she felt no regret. When she saw the fear in Mark's eyes, she took a step closer. "Are you going to kill me?" he whispered, clutching the ground with his bloody hands. Linda stared, unblinking. "You already deserve to die," she said, raising the gun once more and pulling the trigger. It all ended with the last gunshot echoing through the room. Linda put down the gun, took a deep breath, and picked up the phone with trembling hands. The first person she called was Emily. "It's over, honey. You're safe now." Linda closed her eyes as sirens wailed in the distance. No matter what happened, Emily was free.